Underwriting for the Money Doctor Show is provided by Regari Real Estate, Federal Street, Greenfield, a third-generation real estate agency serving the Pioneer Valley. Ryan and Casey Liquors, Main Street, Greenfield, exploring the world one glass at a time. West County Equipment Rental of Shelburne, daily, weekly, monthly rentals, 625-6463, or on the web at westcountyequipment.com. The Franklin County Community Development Corporation, growing sustainable businesses and communities since 1979. www.fccdc.org. Weld Communications, Marketing and Publicity, helping businesses spread the word in the Pioneer Valley and beyond. www.weldwords.com.
There's a better life if I could be debt-free, but all my money is a mystery. I was feeling overwhelmed and it was wearing thin when I knocked on the door and heard the doctor's in. Oh, the doctor's in, the doctor's in. She got the right prescription to help you win. Oh, the doctor's in, the money doctor's in.
Hello and welcome to the Money Doctor Show. I'm Dr. Frances Rahaim at Power Down Debt. I'm the president of Power Down Debt Incorporated, and today my guests are John Waite and Amy Shapiro from the CDC, the Franklin County CDC. So if you have ever thought about either starting your own business or if you run a business now and wish it could be a little bit better than it is, these are the folks you want to hear from. So welcome and thank you for being here.
Thanks for inviting us.
Thank you. Thanks. Now, each of you, although you both work at the CDC, and you're the executive director, John, and you're the business assistance director, which cracks me up, as I was saying to Amy earlier, because I don't know if you realized it, but you have acronyms which make you ED and BAD.
And we try not to use them too often.
She's really not bad. She's quite lovely. Yeah. So you each have areas that you areas of expertise within the CDC. I've gotten to know the Franklin County CDC because I deal a lot with small business people because many small business people have debt. Don't say it, but they do. They have debt. And we need to manage that. Now, in return, when they come in to see me and they say things like, my business is in trouble, or I just want to expand my business, or I wish I could do this if only I had some financing, or I've got this great idea and I just want to start a business, which always makes me happy and scared at the same time, then the first words that come out of my mouth is, let me recommend somebody to you who is a great resource locally, and it's the Franklin County CDC. And yet I'm much surprised that as much as I recommend you, and I talk to other people, and all the advertising you do, it seems that you go unnoticed. How is that possible? So you've been around since 1979 as a nonprofit organization, right?
Yep.
Can you tell me, one of you, tell me a little bit about how this started?
Well, I'll give it a shot. And I haven't been around since 1979, but I have been there 12 years as the executive director, and Amy's been there 11, so we do have a wealth of experience now. Sure. But it started with the members of the community coming together and say we needed something to help spur the economy, and CDC stands for Community Development Corporation. Yes. We really focus on community economic development.
Yes.
And it started back in the 70s, just like actually continuing to today, jobs leaving the area. Back then we had these huge manufacturing companies. They were laying off a lot of folks. So members of the community said, how can we reestablish some of our own local economy instead of depending on the big guys? And they needed someone who could make small loans, who could give business advice, who could network them. And that was how the CDC started. And one of our first programs was, in fact, a small business lending program.
That's sort of a local stimulus. For us.
Totally. Absolutely.
And even when I tell people to go to the CDC, I don't think they realize that you can assist them in lending. You know, very often people just think if they can't get a loan when they went to their local bank, they're done. That's it. And you are an incredible resource. And I should say that you're located in the Venture Center on Wells Street, right in Greenfield, right? How long have you been there?
Well, that's one of the things. We're kind of hidden. We're a mile up from Main Street in Greenfield, but it's 324 Wells Street. We've been there for 22 years. And we own the building, along with the town of Greenfield and some state help. We were able to buy the building, renovate it into a small business incubator.
Yes, and if you go in, you meet Emilio. Right? Emilio is still with you?
Right up on our website.
I love Emilio. I love that on your website. First of all, you have a great website, which is FCCDC.org.
Right, www.fccdc.org.
Yes, and Emilio is a cat. And you just have to
a very
love
special
Emilio,
cat.
who has gained a place on the website.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And on LinkedIn.
And he's on LinkedIn?
He's on LinkedIn. And on Facebook,
Wow.
actually.
How's he doing on LinkedIn?
He's doing quite well. He has a lot of friends.
Who's his marketing expert?
He's got a couple, actually.
I'm thinking
He's
of
got a lot of
CDC.
support. He's got a lot of support. Yeah.
Right. So.
But actually, if Amy should say something about the website, the tools and
Yes.
resources, because she really developed this part of the
Right.
website.
We're
Yeah.
really pleased with it because for many years now we've been talking with people about the local resources and what we do and what just how to develop a business plan. And we realize that when people wake up at 2 in the morning with a great idea, they need a place to go. So we created this elaborate website that has everything we talk about to people.
Yes.
And so whenever they wake up, they have a place to go as long as they have high speed.
Well, I have to say it's elaborate, but it's easy to navigate.
Totally.
And right from the moment you get to the front page, you can see all the different things, whether it's
Right.
financing, whether it's the food processing center, or whatever it happens to be, you can get there easily. And I'm very impressed with your website. You
It's
did a nice
really
job
great.
with it.
Well,
Including templates of business plans, which is what we just try to hammer home all the time, is
Yes.
do a business plan, whether it's 1 page or 100 pages,
Right.
start working on it.
And what I like about it too is that we have links so that we really want people to do market research. So we explain how to do market research and where to go.
Right.
And I think that that's really valuable.
Well, and I have to say, if you're new in business, if you're somebody who has come from a long line of I had a friend who used to say worker bees. If you've come from a long line of worker bees, you have this great idea for a show, for a business, and you want to, it could be a show that's a business, but you have this great idea for a business, and you begin to read things that say, do your market research, do this, do the next thing. If you haven't taken courses in that, it's like the Charlie Brown show, womp, 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 you know? You have no idea what that means, market research. And so you guys are there to help people through this, and one of the first ways that I think, certainly I recommend to people is, okay, so, this happened recently in my office. Someone called me, an existing client, has always worked for somebody else, wants to start a business, wants to get it off the ground while they're working for someone else, and they're frightened and they're emotional. They, it's all, oh, but I love the building and I love this and I'm so happy about this and I can't wait to pick out the china, and they're all emotional about it. And of course they call the money doctor, and what do I say? Stop, time out. Let's remove the emotion as much as we can without squelching it, because starting a business is an exciting and very often great thing in your life if you do it well. If you don't do it well, it can take you down. So the very first thing I tell people is, you know what? You're going to need a business plan. Whether they need financing or not, they need a business plan.
Absolutely.
Now, I know you're going to tell us a little bit about making the business plan, but what I said to this woman, it happened to be a woman, was I want you to go and take the course at the CDC about creating a business plan, because whether you need financing or not, you're going to learn a lot about yourself and the business in the business plan program. You're going to rub elbows with other people that are starting small businesses, other people that are already running businesses, and you're going to learn along the way as you uncover, as you let this business idea unfold. You're going to learn whether this is scary, whether it's a good fit for you, whether it leads you to something else. It's a mission. You're on an experience ride. So tell me about the small business plan, if you will.
So true. I like the way that you described it, because we see people who are very excited, and what our job is to bring them down to reality and to keep their excitement, but kind of organize it in a way. And so the business plan just helps them create a mission which identifies their values and their idea, and for them to go after market research to back up what they're intuitively thinking and believing. We say all the time, we know you know what you're talking about, but you have to back it up with what other people are saying, and that there is an audience that will buy your product or service. And we know you're good, but you got to back it up. And it's to be believable. And then flip all that into finances, into numbers. And then what's really interesting is once they see the numbers, then they see whether it's going to work or not, or what kind of adjustments need to happen. And then it becomes a reality. And so we spend most of our time getting people from being in their business down here to being up here, looking down at it, trying to say, where do we go from here? How do we make it work the way we want it to work? And do we really want to do it? Do we really want to do the business now that we know what it looks like to be sustainable? And a lot of times people say no, they don't. They're not ready to go that way, and we feel like we've saved them. We've saved them time and money, and then there are many people who take a longer time and they're ready to go.
That's interesting. That is exactly what I said to this woman. I couldn't remember the price, but I knew it was a few $100s or less. And I said, this is going to be a few $100s that you spend either to, create a business plan, which is really useful to you about getting financing, or to learn very inexpensively that this is not what you want to do. Because it could really be a problem. But I also just encouraged her to do this because it got her thinking differently. She's transitioning, not necessarily financially from a job to a business, but mentally from working for someone else to working for herself. And what does an idea really do? And is it just fun and exciting for 3 weeks while you tell your friends about it, or do you really want to do this every day, long term?
I think the difference is they're going from being an employee versus being a business owner, and they don't understand the difference between creating a job for yourself and being a business owner.
That's right.
And that's part of the process.
Or the difference between cash flow and profit.
Right.
Big difference between cash flow and profit. People think that their money's coming in and they're buying this and they're putting it back into the business and they're doing all of this stuff. And then someone says, where are your taxes for the year? Oh, taxes. I forgot to pay my quarterlies, or I couldn't pay them, and then there's a problem. So now you mentioned that you get it into numbers and you put it in front of them, and then they can sort of see where they're at. Some of that has got to come got to bring people to two places. One is where they say, no, I can't do it. And the other is where they say, this is really good. I'm feeling great with the safety net behind me, but I don't have any money. What do I do about financing? And so, John, maybe that's your area, but can you tell us a little bit about what that's like? If I come to the CDC and I say, I have a business, I have a great idea, but I'm going to need some money. What do you tell me?
And as I said, our small business lending program's been around for a while, but we have a lot of people who come straight for the money. And we say, do your business plan first. Once you get through that, capital is often an issue. And so we do loans, we call it non-traditional lending. We encourage them to check with the bank, because some people are surprised they actually might be able to get something. And right now the rates are so good at the bank, you might be able to get something there. But then we're able to make loans that are just a little more risky. But what we look at their credit history, we look at collateral, we look at cash flow, we look at character, just like a bank. But then we also really look at their plan, and we work with them even after we make the loan. We follow up with them.
That's pretty important.
And I think that's where we add some value, and it covers us a little bit too. Because our loan funds they were either given to us or they're lent to us at a very low rate, and they revolve. We need to get repaid. So we can make new loans to new folks out there. So we don't make crazy loans, but a little bit riskier than a bank. And our delinquency right now is less than 2%. We've written off very few loans over the last 3 years.
Wonderful.
USDA just gave us more money to relend, and so we've got a good program, and it's because of our several hundred borrowers over the years have repaid. And it's because we focus on the business plan and we follow through with them.
Well, this might be a good time to mention that you're a nonprofit organization, which I really love the idea of. And also, when we're talking about a tight economy like this and businesses that run on very small profit margin, food businesses are one of the big ones, restaurants and all of that. So I want to talk a little bit about the food processing center, and then we'll take a break, and when we come back we'll talk about the small business incubator and hear some success stories from people. But can you tell me a little bit about the food processing center? Just like we started the Venture Center, Small Business Incubator, 22 years ago, and over 50 businesses have been located there. I should mention that. Some went out of business, others have grown up into the industrial park and other places in Franklin County. So then 10 years ago, we started a food processing center, which is basically an incubator for food businesses. We have a USDA and an FDA certified facility. We've got lots of equipment in there. We have steam kettles and large ovens, so people can do higher volume without having to buy the equipment. I was amazed when I came to the CDC. I had no idea you had this. It's what a facility. You can bottle things, you can cook things, you have all this background. And over 225 people have used that. Wow. And the same thing. Some of them use it for a few hours or a few days and say, this isn't a good product, it's not going to work, it's not a good business. But they spent less than $1,000 to learn that. Whereas if they had gone and bought a steam kettle themselves, thousands of dollars wasted. And you can label things and everything, right? Oh yeah. You bring the ingredients in, you make it, you bottle it, you label it, and it's ready to go out to the store. And we have a warehouse where you can store it until it's ready to ship. That's amazing. So we do shipping and receiving from right up there on Wells Street. It's quite an operation. How did that come to be? How did you go from, there must have been a time when somebody had this idea and you started this like a small business and grew it to a bigger business. And actually it predates Amy and I, and there were some great folks out there, including Senator Rosenberg and Congressman John Over, who talked to farmers and other businesses, and lots of people said this could be really useful. So along with our staff at the time and the board, they said, let's go for it. We got
enough money from other sources. We added some of our own money. We built it. The first 5 years, just like we encourage others, we had a business plan.
Right.
And it said the first 5 years, it needs some subsidy. It's not going to make money for 5 years. Well, we were close. It took us 6 years to break even.
Wow,
and
not
then
bad.
we've been paying our operating costs with our revenue. But now we're actually in an expansion phase, and the same thing. We're looking for some capital to do some capital improvements. But then once we do that, it'll pay for itself to keep going.
I love that you call it capital. We're looking for capital improvements. We're talking about the same stuff, but I call it debt. And on that note, we'll take a break for a few moments. When we come back, we'll talk about the Small Business Incubator in more detail, and we'll talk about some success stories.
Excellent.
Thank you both.
Underwriting for the Money Doctor Show is provided by Rahaim Real Estate, Federal Street, Greenfield, a third-generation real estate agency serving the Pioneer Valley. Ryan and Casey Liquors, Main Street, Greenfield. Exploring the world, one glass at a time. West County Equipment Rental of Shelburne. Daily, weekly, monthly rentals. 625-6463 or on the web at westcountyequipment.com. The Franklin County Community Development Corporation. Growing sustainable businesses and communities since 1979. www.fccdc.org. Weld Communications, Marketing and Publicity. Helping businesses spread the word in the Pioneer Valley and beyond. www.weldwords.com.
Welcome back to The Money Doctor. I'm Dr. Frances Rahaim, president of Power Down Debt, and we're back with my guests, John Waite and Amy Shapiro from the Franklin County CDC. So welcome back. While we're on break, we were talking a little bit about, I always do this analogy of the week, so I have to do it. But the analogy, I always have these weird analogies. I'm beginning to feel like Forrest Gump, or Forrest Gump's mother, actually, which is really scary. But starting a small business or running a small business to me is a lot like a chess game. Not in the way that people think. They think, I mean, you know, strategizing other businesses. I mean, you could be the king or the queen of the chessboard, but it doesn't do you any good without a really good court behind you. And what I think the CDC helps bring is there's such a group of resources there. It's not just one business coach here or an accountant over there or an attorney over here. You seem to have a complete picture of what people need for business. And you know, I run a debt business, so I have to say it starts with debt, but it doesn't start there in my mind. It starts there when they come to see you about managing their personal debt, right? So tell me a little bit about that, and then I want to move right on to success stories and fun stuff. So.
Well, I think that what's important in that scenario is that people understand their debt and what their assets are, so that if they are going for a loan, they know what they have for collateral. Right. Starting a business, you know, it's pretty risky, and our job is to help them minimize that risk and give them some success. And even if they're going for a loan, that's the first thing they're going to need to do is to figure out their personal financial situation.
Sure.
We have a lot of sole proprietors or partnerships. Right. It is small, and so it is, especially if they don't have years of experience, then their past history, their personal history is so important. Right. And as we all know with small businesses, especially when you're starting, your personal life and your business life are like one. I mean, it's not a 9-to-5 job. Oh, and that's one of the first things we tell entrepreneurs. Right. And that's what usually makes them entrepreneurial, because they want to spend more time on it. Yes. But their personal and business is quite enmeshed.
Even the finances, or especially the finances, I should say. I can remember starting businesses. Nobody would give me a loan to start that business, so I took what I called business loans, which were really credit card loans or really personal loans. But I called them business loans to the point where you convince yourself, even when you're ready to pay off the loan, you think you're paying off a business loan. First of all, it's not on your business credit. You're not building any credit for your business. And secondly, you are personally responsible for it. So don't try to just ignore it and stick your head in the sand and all of that. So you help them to get their debt sort of, or at least you help to shine the mirror on it and say, here's what your debt looks like and here's what your assets look like. And so they know, I think you use the term, what hurdles they might have to overcome in order to put their finances in order to get to the next level and to not harm themselves. And I keep saying safety net because I think that's a great thing for people to have.
It's true, and once they understand that, then they understand when they find out how much money they need to start their business. That becomes an important gap that they need to fill. And so they look to their personal finances or a lender to see what's realistic.
And a lot of folks, they want to own their building, they want to own their equipment,
Right.
but then we give them an alternative, and that's partly why we have these incubators.
Right.
Where, you know, they can work on their debt or work on their finances without having this other big nut behind them. And so it might take the business might start slower, but in the end, they're going to be better off.
I love the small business incubator. It's probably my favorite thing, at least so far. You and I work together a lot in terms of our businesses, in that I recommend people see you recommend people see me, and we try and work as a team about managing their debt and getting their business going. And a lot of times, small businesses or small business ideas are sort of given wings in my office, because I love to do that for people. It's my favorite part of the job, is to help people, you know, experience their dreams and bring things to fruition and all of that. So one of the things I find myself saying very, very often when someone says, I've had this great idea, or I have to say I'm guilty of this a lot, they're struggling financially, and I look at them and I say, and they're unhappy in a job, for instance, and I'll say, well, what would you do? I mean, if you could do anything, what would happen? And they come up with, well, I'd love to be a personal trainer, or I wish I had, I had this great recipe I wanted to bottle, or something like that. I've got this great invention. The next thing out of my mouth is, you should talk to the CDC and talk to them about their small business incubator and their financing and all of this stuff they do. So Small Business Incubator, I love the name because it's perfect, but can you describe for me what the Small Business Incubator really is?
So, you know, the building is part of it, and we have 10 different spaces up there. Some are small offices just to get you going, and then we have some light manufacturing space, and then we have some larger space. And we've had people who start with an office with 1 or 2 people, and then someone else moved out, they expand it into the next, and then eventually they go and they're ready to go up to the industrial park or someplace else, come downtown.
And what does it cost them? Like, if I came to you and said, I need some office space, I'm trying to run this business out of my home, and I can't, you know, my kids are running over my paperwork, what am I going to do?
So we've got offices that start at $200 a month, and then our bigger spaces go up from there. We're at or a little below market rent.
Sure.
But when you look at everything you get, it's value, because you get, part of what you get is the network of the other businesses that are in the building, as well as the CDC staff. And people are coming and going. You can take all your workshops, you can work with everybody.
Right.
And that is huge, especially for someone who's working on their own. They want to be able to mingle a little bit more. We also have conference space, we have parking. Right now we've got 2 businesses that have a lot of trucks, so they needed a parking space, you know. And so there's all kinds of things that come along with the Small Business Incubator.
I think what also happens too quite frequently is that it's a lonely place to be a business owner.
Yes.
And because we're around, they stop in our offices at any moment when they're having that bad day, or they got rejected, or they just need somebody to boost them up, or
they've had a great idea.
Or they had a great idea.
To share it with you.
We get that explosion. It's great. And so it's just so important to somebody who's starting, taking all the risk and struggling every day to make it happen, and are feeling very alone. So they're part of a team, and it's that coaching and that advisory group that's behind them. And we make everybody think about who's that on their advisory team, and it's, you know, the people who aren't the yes people, the people who are really going to rally and be the critical thinkers.
Well, I agree, and they trust you not to just, you know, blow smoke at them. They know that you're going to tell them the real deal.
Right.
And that's largely because, because they know we're in it for the long haul. We're not just a consultant who comes in for an hour, but we've been here, like we said, for 32 years. We're going to be around, and so I think that helps our position.
I love the idea of the network because it is so inspiring for people. In my business, we get the analogy often about, you know, having debt, and having a debt plan is like being on Weight Watchers or being on a diet plan. You can't be on a diet your whole life. Sooner or later you'll binge. So you've got to have a management plan. But what people do well with, in typical senses, is some structure, somebody they feel accountable to, and some teammates to play with to keep them on track. And that's what you're getting. You're immersed into a business environment rather than being in your basement trying to make yourself write ad copy or whatever. You're immersed and you rub elbows with all these people. I obviously I can't say enough good about it. I think it's a great resource.
And a lot of folks think that they want to keep their ideas private, and usually they end up suffocating their own business. Now there's some things you want to copyright or get a patent on, but a lot of things, the more you share, the more you're going to grow, and the better it is for yourself. So we encourage that.
Now I have to say, this part of the segment has flown by almost, and I can't let us leave. We've got about 4 or 5 minutes left. I can't let us leave without hearing some success stories. So bring them on.
All right, I got to go a couple quick ones because they have to do with incubator and lending. So there's a company called Ewing Control that was in our space for 5 or 6 years, and then they ended up moving down to Deerfield Street in Greenfield, and they expanded they started with 2 people. When they moved out, they had about 16 employees.
Wow, Ewing Control?
Ewing Control.
What do they do?
It's a manufacturer of cogeneration power systems.
Wow.
And they don't sell locally, they actually sell internationally. But they're here in Greenfield. They were kind of hiding out in Wells Street. Then a couple other businesses that people are more familiar with is PV Grows, Pioneer Valley, PV Squared. Perennial Valley Photovoltaic.
Oh, absolutely.
They started with 4 people, a worker-owned co-op in our building with an office. Then they got some light manufacturing space. Then they moved across the street. They now have 17 employees.
Yes.
And they're installing photovoltaics all over the place. The other one is Real Pickles. I love talking about food, and Real Pickles now has probably 8 different products, but they started with naturally fermented cucumbers into pickles.
Yeah.
And they started actually with a $2,000 loan in the food center. After 8 years, he had so many employees and so much production, he needed his own space. Again, came to our lending program. We helped him buy the building across the street from us, fixed it up. Now he's got 8 employees over there.
How cool is that? He wouldn't have even known probably about the building across the street if he hadn't been at the CDC, right?
A lot of networking, a lot of talking, and then again, and we did that with a bank. We do a lot of our financing, especially of the larger the properties, things like that. Sure. Our loan limit is up to $200,000.
Yep.
So if you need more than that, we try to hook you up with a bank as well.
I have to say, I would love to have you guys for a second show, and I'm not done with you yet, Amy. I want to hear some Turner's
We have a
Falls
lot of success stories.
You do have a lot of success stories, and we should mention that it's not just Franklin County, that you deal with other counties as well. So, and I really would love to do this again if you guys will do it with more information. But before we go, Turner's Falls stories.
Well, as we're talking, I'm thinking about the whole networking piece, and I think what happens is that people just start supporting each other. And a good story is Denise DiPaolo, who had a dream of wanting to have her own restaurant and spent 5 years putting a business plan together. She didn't rush into it. She really did due diligence. And I think it shows by what she was able to create. And from that, other businesses got confidence of opening up a business in Turner's Falls.
There's no doubt about that. No doubt about that.
So it really takes a catalyst, and I think Denise is a good example. And working with her with a business plan, we also helped her with financing. And if you look at other businesses in Turner's Falls, another example is Loot.
Yes.
They took our 12-week business plan class with an idea of opening up a retail business for their the type of business that they have. They collect found objects and interesting things and want to sell them. They have a really great eye.
And we should say it's L-O-O-T. It's not loot like an instrument. It's
right.
Yes.
And so from that business plan, they got financing, they bought a building, they rehabbed it, and now they have this beautiful space right on Avenue A. And what's neat about them is that they're collaborating with other businesses on Avenue A to create activities and things to do. So, I think that's economic development that is really at the heart of all the work that we do together.
Right. It's what the CDC is all about.
Right.
So I thank you both for being here and for sharing all of this information with us, but I really feel like we barely touched on it. So if you're willing to come back for another show, I'd love to have you. We'll come back,
we'll bring clients, whatever you'd like. Because the more you can share this information, I think the more helpful it is to the next folks.
Maybe we should do a live shoot at the CDC with some of the people.
Or
that would be possible. Yeah, but we'd be able to get filming of the CDC.
Or in their business.
And the 100-gallon kettle making making marinara sauce or something.
So it's possible.
Very good.
So I thank you all for joining us, and until next time, keep it positive.
There's a better life if I could be debt-free, but oh, my money is a mystery. I was feeling overwhelmed and it was wearing thin when I knocked on the door and heard the doctor's in. Oh, the doctor's in. Doctor's in, she got the right prescription to help you win. Oh, the doctor's in, the money doctor's in.